Hi guys, it's Joy from Cook with Jake and Joy, and every Tuesday, first Tuesday of the month, I try to do a live video. And now this is how this show actually began, was that I started shooting myself doing little cooking demonstrations, and they were almost always disastrous. I would ruin the top of my food processor, I would spill soup on something. And so when we met Derek Swanson, he started shooting for us and everything turned out so much better. So usually what you see is the finished product of what Derek has edited and put together with music, and it looks really great. But I still love to do some live video, and so I am attempting to do that today, but I'm actually videotaping it and then doing it because it's a multi-step process, and I don't think I could do it all in one fell swoop. This is something I've never, ever done before. And I'm gonna can tomatoes today. So you know how I always tell you that my husband's always bringing me home all this produce from our farm. We have a farm called Chapala Gardens, and we donate almost all the produce to local charities, but we love tomatoes, and so he's always bringing me home like multiple tomatoes at one time, and I've had tomato parties, and I think I've probably told you about them. But the one kind of tomatoes that I don't really like are Roma tomatoes, and he grows them because they're hardy, and I don't know why he grows them. They look good, but I've learned something about Roma tomatoes. First of all, they're what are great for making tomato sauce and canned tomatoes. So first I was gonna make tomato sauce, but then I thought, you know what, we use canned tomatoes so much more, and you can pay like up to $5 a can for really good tomatoes. So I am going to give my hand at trying to do canned tomatoes. One thing I learned about Roma tomatoes is that they're what's called determinate. And I thought determinate meant that the vines didn't keep growing, but what it actually means is that all of the fruit becomes ripe at one time, which is really hard to deal with because now I have all of these tomatoes, and I'm gonna can them. So I found a bunch of different recipes. I'm gonna share with you what I've learned, and yeah, let's get to it. So the first thing that I had to do was figure out, I looked up a bunch of different recipes, looked up a bunch of different methods, and I thought I can do this without having any equipment. And by the time I got done with it, I was like, okay, I need to get some equipment. And it's Labor Day today, so I went down to Ace Hardware where everybody was, because it's Labor Day, and I bought a big old canning pot, which I'll show you in just a minute, and I bought a little rack. It's gonna hold the jars, and I bought a bunch of jars, and I'm sterilizing them right now, and then I bought a bunch of little doodads, and you'll see that as we go along. So everyone says it's so easy, but it seems kind of complicated to me. The first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna blanch the tomatoes and take the skins off. And I've heard people say, oh, you don't need to take the skins off, you can just put them in the Vitamix, blah, blah, blah. And I think they'd be better for you with the skins on, but from everything I've read, you have to take the skins off. So I'm boiling 2 big pots of water, and once they've come to boil, I'm gonna toss these babies in. Now I did 2 pots because it says you don't wanna crowd the tomatoes. You wanna boil them gently for 60 seconds, because if you boil them too long, it's a problem. And then we're gonna dump them into cold water. And as I'm saying this, I'm realizing that I should get my little handy dandy pot that I can pull the tomatoes out of, so I don't have to just dump the water. I'm gonna go get those, and I'll be right back. And this is this piece that I was talking about. This fits inside of my autoclave, and there's 2 different pieces to it. You see, this one is like for spaghetti, or I use this for broth a lot, and then this one would be for steaming vegetables. And this is probably one of the best investments I've ever made, was in this stock pot. I really, really like it a lot. But before I put the tomatoes in, I've got to do something so I can take the skins off easily. And there are 2 different methods that I've read about. And one is putting an X in the bottom, and the other is cutting the bottom off completely. So you can either go like this, I need a better knife. So I can either go like this, which I think that's gonna be a lot easier, or on the top, you can score them like this, and then they peel off. So I've got a little X on the top. I think slicing off the ends is gonna be a little bit faster, so that's what I'm gonna do, and then I'm gonna pop them into the boiling water for 60 seconds. That was a big job. I have all of these scored on top. It actually worked better to score them than to cut the ends off, and I felt like I was wasting a lot of the tomato anyway. And then I did pick out the bad ones. So these guys I don't want to include, because you don't want to have any ones that have any like mushy spots or anything like that. Second thing I want to tell you is that I did put this insert into the big stock pot, and what happens is it displaces it cuts off right here. So the water was not enough. It wasn't going to be enough to submerge the tomatoes fully, and I think that that's really important. They're going to go in right as the water's boiling for exactly 1 minute. If you do them longer, they're going to get mushy. So I've got an ice bath here that I'm going to throw them into. In fact, I probably need to add a little more ice. And I'm just going to put a whole ice cube tray in to make the water really cold. And then I'll pull them out. So let's see, crossing my fingers, let's hope it works. So you know what it actually worked great for? It worked great to pour the tomatoes in before I plunge them into icy water. So I'm gonna put them right away because I don't want them to cook. You want these to be like as raw as possible, right? That's the whole idea behind canning them raw. Some people even will eat these on salad in the wintertime. I do love tomatoes. Like I said earlier, I don't love Roma tomatoes, but I do use them in chilies and minestrone and stews. If you've watched any of our other shows, you know that we are always cooking with these. So now here's the deal. Once these are cool enough to handle, the little skins peel right off. Voila. Voila, isn't that cool? So I just have a mess of them to do, and I'll be back. Oh my goodness, that was actually the hard part, man. That took so long. Look at all, these are just the skins that I took off. Do you see that? That process probably took me an hour to do this many tomatoes. So this pot is full of tomatoes. So now what I need to do is I'm going to put them into sterilized jars. There's a lot of different ways to sterilize jars. Some people suggest putting them into boiling water. Some people suggest putting them in the oven. I have a sanitation sterilizing feature on my dishwasher. So that's what I use. It seemed like the easiest one. So now I'm gonna fill all of the containers and I'm gonna actually add to each of them because I've got fresh basil, I've got fresh oregano, and I've got fresh thyme. And I'm gonna add some of that to all of them. And I think I'm gonna put in some jalapeno slices into some of them because usually what I make is spicy, but I'll mark the ones that I've put jalapenos into. And I'm gonna add that sliced as well. And I'm gonna fill it up to about a ½ an inch from the top. And then I'll come back and show you what we do with them next. So here's how the finished product looked. Isn't this beautiful? Look, I put basil and oregano and thyme on the bottom and also on the top. I didn't put jalapeno in this one. I'm going to add it to the other ones. Now you have to clean the ridge of it really well, and these have been sterilized. And now I'm going to add the lid and the band. And I found out that you can't use the lids again for canning. These lids, you can only use them once. The bands you can use again and again if you like. So I'm going to screw that on. They say finger tight. And then we're going to add this and the rest of them. I'm going to can all of them. And we're going to add them to a hot bath so that they actually boil. So I'll show you that once we get them in. Okay, so here is the finished product. I got 6 of these jars. One thing I forgot to tell you is that you need to add 2 tablespoons of lemon concentrate to each one of them. It's supposedly tomatoes are not really necessary to add that because they've already got such a high acid content, but to be on the safe side so you don't get botulism or anything like that, I did add it to all of them. And I did it in the first one, I did it in the bottom and it got kind of a pool at the bottom. So I did the next ones in the middle and then I've layered them, as you can see here, I've layered them with basil, oregano and thyme, and then 3 of them I did with jalapenos on top. And what I love about these lids is that you can write what you've got in them. You can write the date that you canned them. If you were a big canner, you'd probably want to do that. I don't. Now is the time that I'm going to put them into the bath. So I've purchased one of the great big canning things. It's got a little rack in the bottom, and I'm going to submerge them 2 inches over the top and boil them for 85 minutes. That's how you treat them, and that's what preserves them. And then I'll take them out and cool them, and we'll have tomatoes. Now I have to say, this was a lot of work. I started working, it took me almost 2 hours to do this, and I've gotten 6 cans of tomatoes. And the only thing that's going to make it worth it is if this is the most amazing tomatoes that I've ever had, because I don't mind spending $4 to $5 a can for tomatoes if they're going to be really, really good. So we'll see how good these are. My time is worth a lot more than that, but this was fun, and I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you share what you do with your canning adventure. That's all for now. I'm Joy with Cook with Jake and Joy. See ya.